Yes, you saw correctly. You can actually see daylight through the body and the gasket that holds the windshield in place. And yes, it has curled the weather stripping down and out the front all the way down to here on both sides. What that means is this glass has moved forward and could fall out, as I have found online some people have complained about. You see the driver's side, which sounded the noisiest. Nice fan. It's done the same. We see we have insulation hanging out. We see it's been this way for a long time. You look at the dirt and the mildew across the top where it's been leaking. Also notice that this trim here, there's a much bigger gap between the fiberglass nose cone and the body than there is here. There's no gap here. So everything in the front has twisted. Not what I'd expect out of a $94,000 vehicle. Poor build. Nothing else can be said about that. There's no fucking reason for the windshields to be falling out of a freaking vehicle that had 8,000, well now has 12,000 miles on it. That's pretty sad if you ask me. On to my next driver's position gripe. Some people drive with 2 feet. I'm one of them. Left foot, if you don't have a manual transmission and there's no clutch pedal, then your left foot belongs on the damn brake and your right foot belongs on the throttle. I don't drive down the road with my foot on the brake, obviously, but you need to be able to use it. This does not really provide the ability to do that, and that's not the basis of my major complaint. As we see, the pedal is cranked way over to the right, very close to the accelerator. The parking brake is not in an overly convenient location either. That certainly could have gone outboard quite a ways. But look at the throttle. It is slammed right against the doghouse. I can barely fit my fingers in here. That means your leg is twisted at an angle like this and really doesn't allow you any range of motion for your right leg at all. I find that pretty miserable. I think that all the pedals and everything should have been moved over 8 to 12 inches along with the steering column and the damn seat. Minor grievance, and perhaps this doesn't affect everyone. With the driver's seat 13 inches to the right away from the wall, it gives you an odd feeling. But let us move on to the rest of the vehicle. Here you have your bathroom, the door of which can be opened to there and left open to provide a little more privacy in the shower. It's an adequate bathroom, but I don't know if it'll show in the video. The toilet is moved up against the wall. So if you wipe with your left hand and you lean to the right, you can't do that without opening the door a little bit so that you can actually lean. I don't know why they didn't center it or put it closer to this foolish carpeted cover here. And yes, this is carpeting. This is paneling. This is carpet. Why you would put carpet in a bathroom of a motorhome, I just don't know. I mean, it's inevitable that if somebody's peeing while you're going down the road, that it's possible they're going to miss and soil the carpet, and then you're going to have to deal with the stench, because I don't know how you're going to clean that one little piece of carpet effectively. You have a shade here. You have a very tiny window here, which again is kind of useless. You do have an exhaust fan up top that collects with leaves and dirt. We cleaned all of these before we left on our trip. You have a cabinet here. That's all well and great. You have a plastic sink with plastic fixtures and a little stopper. You have a porcelain bowl with a cheap plastic lid that doesn't actually stay tight ever. So that's my gripe about the bathroom. Shower is not bad. There's a little latch here to keep it closed, though we never had that open on us. Here is the bedroom. Pretty good size. I don't know why you have this makeup area, but it does. A little stool, little drawers. I would have ditched this and put a window in here, which we'll get to in a moment. You have a giant shirt closet. Might just be me. I don't claim to be high society, but I don't even own that many fucking shirts that would fit in here. So my wife put these in so we could actually put the kids' clothes in there in an orderly manner. You do have drawers here. However, you're thinking, why don't you just put the clothes in the drawer? Because you can't get to them when the slide out is put in. Returning to the cockpit, you have these latches for the doghouse. They just don't stay up. So they end up laying on the floor where they get stepped on by passengers with bare feet. You think, okay, it's not a big deal, you can see it. Well, what you can't see is this frickin' Phillips screw sticking up. That's nice to nail your toe with the ball of your foot. So as I said, with this bedroom slide out closed, you cannot get to those drawers. To close that, you have to have your ignition to the accessory position, your floor controller switch on, turn this on, and hit retract. As you see, you no longer have access to the drawers, stool, anything except for these. Moving on, we have another issue. You'll notice this slide out is crooked. It's sloped this way. You can see it here. You have a huge gap at the top with no gap down here, besides the poorly fitted trim. Why is this all cocked over this way? Because this awning is too short. It's actually pulling, the awning is holding the top in. Doesn't matter, it leaks anyway. Every time it rains, whether this is out, the slide out is out or in, water pools up down here. So it's not sealed very well. But to retract that, this comes in like such. Which you'll look in here and think, well, there's still quite a bit of room, but once this comes in, there isn't much room. The tiled portion is all that you have to walk on. So it's rather tight. Also notice how it rocks and sways. In the master bedroom, we have an air conditioner, and we have 2 of 4 speakers. And a couple of floodlights, which are rather miserable to read with, but nonetheless. this speaker is crooked. So, for your $94,000, they couldn't even be bothered to put the fucking speaker grill in straight. Am I being overly critical? Well, you can make that decision or assumption. However, of the two places an owner is going to spend the most time, it's going to be in the driver's seat or laying in bed looking up. Sleeping, hopefully, but still in the bedroom. And you're going to be looking at that speaker that's crooked. That would irritate the shit out of me. We'll move on to the bathroom. And they screwed up when they cut the hole in the countertop for the sink. See here? And here? They're very sloppy about cutting the hole. That, to me, says a lot about the build quality of the whole vehicle. If they're that sloppy about putting screws in for the seat belts at an angle, and the speaker is crooked, and the sink hole wasn't cut properly, I mean, come on, you have to have a template to do that. And you can't tell me that that countertop cost the company more than, all right, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say $50. You fuck the top up, throw the top away. Put a new one in. Why is that there? Why would you let a glaring defect like that roll out of your factory? It's shoddy workmanship and poor quality control. I'm not impressed at all. I'd also like to point out that where the windshield is curved, there is horrendous distortion. It probably is not going to show up on video. It's pretty annoying driving. I'll also point out that the wipers don't even go anywhere near the ends of the windshield. This results in 50% of the glass not being cleaned, which is not a big deal in rain, but if it's dirty rain, muck, or there's bugs all over that area of the windshield, your vision is even further limited. And between that and the curtains in the way, that's just really not, again, not what I'd expect out of a $94,000 vehicle. Another personal complaint about the cockpit, these sides are sloped upwards. That creates an incredible blind spot right next to the camper while you're driving. The mirrors don't pick it up, despite the giant convex mirror on the bottom third of the outboard mirrors. But I certainly feel that if that were level, it would afford better visibility and remove the blind spot. Nitpicking, yeah, whatever, but it's not convenient the way it is now. I personally also do not like the angle of the steering wheel. You have much better control of a vehicle. It's less fatiguing if your steering wheel is more upright. This one does not go down far enough. That's the high position, which is really obnoxious. And that is as far down as it goes. If this were the highest position, that would be okay. It should bring it down back down to here at the lowest, but it does not. When your steering wheel is turned up flat like a freaking city bus, you generally have a little less control, and you tend to, it allows the vehicle to kind of porpoise down the road more so than if the wheel were straight up and down. Speaking of porpoising down the road, the suspension on this thing is way too soft. This thing rocks side to side and front to back, and it's just all over the place. I like Fords. I like the V10. We've rented a motorhome a few years back, 2004, Class C, that had the same chassis and powertrain, and that thing was phenomenal. Top speed was 98. It got 11 miles to a gallon, running 85 miles per hour plus, and 14 miles per gallon the rest of the time. That is a far drastic improvement over what this thing is getting. Again, 5.8 miles to a gallon in this. But most importantly, the Class C handled great, and this not so much. I mean, this is certainly a vehicle, again, use it for what it's made for. You want to lumber down the highway at 50 or 55 miles per hour, that's fine. But the Class C was certainly more agile, faster, with better fuel economy. So, in my opinion, far better to travel with than this vehicle. Another item lacking in the cockpit is some sort of a console. Well, we have this tiny little tray. As you can see, it's mounted extremely low for the driver. Had the seat been moved out a foot, would have left room to walk by here, they could have had a larger doghouse that perhaps was at the level of the dash and had a drink holder back here, storage box or whatever. I would have found that more useful than what is here, and the goofy overhead cabinets, which I'll have to point out, the overhead cabinets are slanted this way. So when you open things, if you hit a few potholes or construction, whatever, when you open these, all your crap falls out. Not very convenient, especially this one that's full of your electronics, your DVD player and junction box and all of that. And if you stuff some CDs in here, DVDs rather, they will fall out. The black panels are the location of your 2 forward speakers. That's all. 2 forward speakers, 2 rear speakers. All controlled by your dash by changing functions. Fader front to back. Now the problem with that is if you have passengers in the back and you're driving, especially at night, they want to sleep. Who gets to adjust the speakers so that they're turned off in the back? There's no switch in the back to just turn the damn speakers off. It's up to the driver to do. In a vehicle where you're driving many, many hours to get to your destination, or you're just plain traveling around the country, the driver should have as few tasks as possible that would distract his driving or cause any more fatigue. And one of the inconveniences of this, one of many, is having to turn the fucking rear speakers off. That should be something that should be on a switch out back. Hit the switch, have a nice day. Besides that, you can see how dated the sound system is. Yes, it's a 2006 model and this is 2013. However, even in 2006, a 4-speaker system was outdated. Most vehicles had 8 speakers by then, some had 10. So being that this is a rolling house, I think at least 8 speakers should have been minimum, and there should have been a control panel here along with this stuff for a main stereo control to take it out of the driver's hands. This should also, in my opinion, have a multi-disc CD changer instead of a single disc. One CD is you know, you listen to one CD, you're back to track 1 again, in a half hour to 45 minutes or so, and you know, it's a pain in the ass constantly changing out the CD. So you really have to have a good co-pilot with you who can handle changing stations, handle changing CDs, handle switching speakers from rear to front, etc., etc. And you don't always have that co-pilot because sometimes they need to sleep. There are no 110 outlets in this vehicle that function while you're driving down the road, which is outright bizarre to me. Kids need to recharge their electronic devices. You've got other things you want to plug in. You need to recharge your cell phone, etc. You're limited to two 12-volt outlets. Personally, I run two GPSs. Those two outlets are gone. You say, well, you can get a device that holds 3 accessories out of the one outlet. You're right. But the dash shakes so bad that those multi-port outlets don't stay secured in the dash. So you're constantly losing GPS power and waiting for it to restart and figure out where you are again. Another issue is this overhead is so freaking large that your GPS loses satellite signal quite frequently. That's a bother to me. But anyway, back to the 110 outlets that don't work. It doesn't really matter anyway because there aren't many in here to begin with. We have 2 here over the chair, which is, I don't know, I found it inconvenient. It's a convenient place to plug in, but then you've got cords tangling around somebody's neck. You have an additional 2 here in the top in the kitchen area. I would think in the wall would be better to plug in your little grill, toaster, coffee maker, or whatnot. There are no outlets at all on this side except down here, one with a telephone jack. Why they're there, I couldn't tell you. I will say that is the most inconvenient freaking spot for an older adult to plug anything in. It's just not easy to get to without being a contortionist. We can add to this misery the squeaky table, with the cheapy folding leg and the peeling veneer that we've had to duct tape back into place because that has to fit between this peeling veneer in order to put the table down to turn into a bed. On the plus side, this is the most comfortable bed in this entire vehicle. This fold-out couch has a mattress in it. You feel the frame, and the frame is not even flat. The frame is lumpy. It is absolutely the worst surface I have ever slept on in my life, and I've slept on numerous picnic tables around the country on various motorcycle trips. I've slept on the ground. I've slept on a brick wall. I've slept on a dumpster lid. That freaking couch is absolutely hideous and not something I would expect, again, out of a $100,000 freaking vehicle. This mattress is not much better. It's flat, which is good. It's hard, which I can tolerate, but it's just not firm in a supportive way. It's just hard. We had to resort to using 2-inch memory foam on the top to make it bearable enough to sleep on, and I don't think that should be necessary in a vehicle this expensive. If you're gonna spend $94,000, I certainly feel that you should have 3 comfortable places to sleep. Which brings me to another issue regarding the front, that, you know, if they had done away with all of this foolish crap up top, the useless storage cabinets, the giant TV and such. You could have done like a Class C and had an overhead bunk that would have been much more practical. I find that these seats are too high. Again, I'm 5'11", but it bothered the back of my knees in the position it's in. The seats could have been lower, but it is what it is. To finish, like there isn't enough already, we had numerous little things go bad. The microwave door wouldn't release one night. Press. It wouldn't kick out. I finally had to actually stick a coin in there to pry it open, and it's worked fine since then. In this overhead cabinet above your stairs, you have an entrance step which has a switch to lock the stairs in the down or the up position. More than 50% of the time, it would not work. We ran into that problem with a lot of things in this motorhome that worked when they wanted to, and sometimes just, didn't work. It was rather frustrating, to say the least. We encountered 3 instances where there's an indicator on the dash that says warning, check gauges. 3 times that came on, flashing with an alarm, to look down and see that the engine temperature gauge was just about in the red zone, overheating. However, vehicle was not overheating. One instance it did that. The warning came on motoring down the highway at 60 miles per hour, 65, was nighttime. And we've been on the road for an hour. The gauge hasn't been creeping up. Just suddenly that came on and the gauge is pegged. Put the vehicle in neutral, turn the key off, restart the vehicle. The temperature gauge is right back in the normal zone, halfway up the gauge, and the warning lamp goes off. Just like I said, 3 times that happened. Rather bizarre. The fuel gauge in this vehicle is nowhere near accurate. You fill the tank, you've got your 75 gallons on board, you drive and you drive and you drive and you drive and you drive to find that it stays on full and it doesn't move. Suddenly, it will start dropping at a rapid rate, but when you're down to half a tank, should be 37.5 gallons to refill it, you'll often find that it takes 50 or more. It is not accurate. I did not run this out of fuel, so I can't tell you whether reading empty is actually empty or not, or I should say whether it actually reaches empty or not. But if you have one of these, or you borrow one of these, or you rent one of these, fill it up at half, or at least shortly after it hits half, so that you don't run the risk of running out. Another thing to be aware of is generator use. We were at a location for 2 days of rest. We did not have electrical, so we were running the generator on and off in order to use the air conditioning to keep it cool enough in here to sleep. That random 2 days use of the generator, I had filled the tank 6 miles prior to arriving at this location. As I said, we spent 2 days there, randomly using the generator to keep the AC going, to keep things cool and to cook, etc. And I went 6 miles again and refilled the tank. We used over $135 worth of fuel in the generator. So I'm not complaining. Generators use a lot of fuel, and just trying to make anybody who's watching this who's going to rent, buy, or borrow one of these, be aware the generator is also a fuel pig. I'd like to end this with the statement that I am not attacking anyone who owns one of these. I'm not picking on your choice of vehicle. I merely did this video to point out the defects that we found with this particular one.
and it seems that there's other hurricane owners with similar problems. I'm sincerely indebted to my father-in-law for lending this to us, and I'm grateful that my wife came up with the idea. My original plan was to take my Suburban on this road trip and just get hotels, motels, eat out, etc. Theoretically, this probably saved us the expense of hotel rooms and meals out, which was greatly offset by the amount of fuel this has used versus my Suburban, which gets 20 miles to a gallon, 16 when I'm hauling something and hauling. But it is what it is. It was a unique opportunity, and one thing people don't understand, I think, is you go in to buy an RV and you're just stunned by the woodwork and the features and all that stuff and a lot of people end up buying them without having the opportunity to really be critical about what they're looking at. You know, the slide out behind me interfering with the driver's seat is, to me, ridiculous, and I don't think the average person would think of that until it was too late and they owned it. So my advice is, if you find a motorhome you like, try to rent it if at all possible. Rent it for a week, take it on a road trip, and really find out if that is what you want. The more time you spend in one of these, the more critical you're going to get of this shouldn't be here, or this is inconvenient for me, and back and forth. And hopefully, you know, with a rental, it doesn't matter. Hopefully that will give you the insight to when you go to buy your own, that you can be more critical and really make sure that what you buy is exactly what you want and has all the features that you want and none of the features that you don't want. So that's it. It was an interesting road trip. I'm glad I went. The kids had a good time. We're all very happy to be home finally. As I said, this is not super comfortable to drive. And that's it. So I hope this was informative for you. Again, I'm not criticizing anybody, any hurricane owners. That's not my intention in the least bit. I'm just pointing out the defects that I found with this, and my personal opinion as a long ago truck driver that doesn't suit my needs. Thank you.